Hello friends, I welcome all of you to my new lecture session on chemistry of folic acid complex. So this is my fifth lecture in the series of chemistry of vitamins. In the year 1930s, Dr. Lucy Wills identified a new hemopoietic factor in yeast and liver which cured tropical macrocytic anemia in humans and experimental anemia in monkeys. When she was working in a hospital in Mumbai, actually she found the women suffering from anemia were actually cured with this hemopoietic factor. And Janet Watson and William B. Castle later named this unknown substance as Wills factor. And several other people studied similar kind of observations in other species like in monkeys as well as chicks, and they named the factors with respect to chemicals as vitamin M and vitamin BC. Okay, this has led to a lot of confusion at that time. And to summarize the extent of confusion created, folic acid, all these 7 factors are almost the same with slight modifications in their chemistry, but their therapeutic outcome is the same. Okay, first one is folic acid is actually liver L-Kc factor, and lactobacillus Kc factor, yeast L-Kc factor or pteroyl glutamyl glutamic acid, vitamin BC conjugate with 7 molecules of glutamic acid, vitamin B10, B11, factor R, S and U regarding studies on chicken growth, and then vitamin M, nutritional factor for monkeys. So all these have the same kind of therapeutic outcome, but their chemistry is slightly altered. This is folic acid, which is yellowish powder. Before going into the actual chemistry of folic acid, let me introduce you to a few chemical structures which helps us significantly in the structural elucidation. This is the pteridine unit. So pteridine unit is actually a known compound at that time in 1930s, and the 2 compounds xanthopterin and biopterin were already isolated and known chemicals at that time. So they were isolated from various animal tissues, and even insects like butterfly wings also were found to possess this compound. Folic acid is a widely available compound in leaves. So that's why leaves means foliage. Foliage, from there they derived the name folic acid. The rich sources of folic acid are spinach, lemons, bananas, asparagus and strawberries, whereas in animal tissues liver and kidney were found to be enriched with the folic acid. Yeast was also known to possess folic acid in significant quantities. Let's see the isolation of folic acid. Folic acid is first isolated from animal liver. Animal liver tissue was taken, macerated and extracted with aqueous hydroalcoholic mixture. That mixture was taken and acidified with HCl, and then this material is adsorbed onto a material, we call it as norite, or we also this is nothing but activated coconut charcoal, then elute the column with alcoholic ammonia. So here in this first filtration, what happens is nitrogenous compounds, protein fragments, etc., coloring material were all removed, and then these alcoholic ammonia fractions obtained were taken and acidified and adsorbed onto another stationary phase, we call it as superfiltrol. And in the second elution, they used ethanolic ammonium hydroxide, and here actually partially purified fraction of folic acid was obtained. So folic acid containing fractions were collected and then concentrated, then barium hydroxide was added to obtain barium salts of folic acid. So barium salts of folic acid were taken and then converted to phosphotungstate salts of folic acid, and here they treated with ethanol and acidic catalyst to obtain folic acid ethyl ester. So this folic acid ethyl ester, because this is an organic compound with less polarity, and it is again adsorbed onto superfiltrol and now eluted with a slightly non-polar solvent, that is acetone. Here folic acid ethyl ester of highest purity was obtained, which is saponified with sodium hydroxide to obtain the necessary starting material, that is necessary compound, that is folic acid. So friends, this is the way how folic acid was isolated in the beginning. Now let's see the chemistry of folic acid. Here folic acid is a photosensitive compound and it gets degraded very easily in aqueous solutions, acidic or alkaline solutions. Okay, so in any of these, and then when upon oxidation, okay, air oxidation, exposure to air also, it gets degraded. It is highly sensitive. Okay, what is the first thing that we do in case of unknown compound structural elucidation? First we go for function, this one, elemental analysis. But elemental analysis in the beginning, when they were using microanalysis for elemental composition determination, the error percentage was 0.4% or even slightly more than that. So this 0.4% is okay for smaller molecules, but as you increase the molecular weight, this 0.4% error may add to a lot of confusion in fixing the molecular formula. So that's why here those molecules with molecular formula less than 500 only are considered for elemental analysis, for confirmation of elemental analysis. So those macromolecules, polypeptides, etc. were never considered for elemental analysis. So here what they have done is, they have taken East L-Kc factor instead of folic acid and subjected to air oxidation. So here they obtain two compounds, one is compound A and compound D. Compound A has a molecular formula C7H5N5O3 and compound D is an aromatic amine. So aromatic amine structural elucidation we will see later on. So here if you see compound A, let's calculate its degrees of unsaturation. 7 plus 1 plus 5 by 2 minus 5 by 2 is equal to 8. 8 unsaturations are there. And for a molecular formula this simple, like C7 and N5, total 12 elements are there. And here we are getting a molecular formula, unsaturation is 8. It clearly means that the compound has so many double bonds. And it could be a polycyclic aromatic compound. Now they have taken compound A and subjected to planned degradation to obtain the details of its structure. Let's see how its structure is unraveled. Compound A was taken and first it was oxidized with chlorine water and then it was hydrolyzed to obtain a known compound, that is guanidine. Okay, this is the first indication of presence of guanidine type of nucleus in compound A. Next what they have done is, they have taken compound A, and compound A was known to possess, in the beginning when they have done the functional group analysis, it is a carboxylic acid containing compound. So compound A was taken and heated to decarbonylate it. So it got decarboxylated to obtain a known compound and carbon dioxide. So what is this compound? Just now we have seen in the previous slide, this is xanthotyrine. Xanthotyrine is a known compound at that time. Hence xanthotyrine was identified, is found to have, the compound A was found to have pteridine unit in its nucleus. Okay, and xanthotyrine moiety is also there. And carbon dioxide, carboxylic acid unit need to be attached to this structure now. And UV spectrum of compound A also have shown similar kind of a pattern with known pteridine derivatives. All the three derivatives whatever I have shown you, pteridine, xanthotyrine and biotyrine, all these three, the UV pattern was found to be same. These two observations clearly indicated the presence of a pteridine unit with a little bit of information regarding substitution pattern. Now they have done another degradation experiment to fix the position of carboxylic acid unit in compound A. They have taken East L-Kc factor and subjected to sulfurous acid hydrolysis. So here what happened is, they got two compounds, aromatic amine D. So this aromatic amine D both are the same. And then some aldehyde was obtained. And then what they have done, they have treated aldehyde with sodium hydroxide and no air. If you observe this reaction, if you take in aldehyde chemistry, if you take aldehyde and treat it with an alkali in the absence of air, aldehyde has the capacity of self-oxidation reduction type of reaction. So that if you take 2 moles of aldehyde and keep it in the presence of alkali and anaerobic environment, it gets self-oxidation, self-reduction. So thereby a carboxylic acid will come and methyl derivative will also come. So here in this reaction, scientists observed that compound A was also obtained and some compound C. Compound A, we all knew that it contains a pteridine unit and some carboxylic acid part is also there. So what should be there in the compound C? Instead of carboxylic acid, it should contain a methyl substitution on the ring. So what they have done is they have taken compound C and hydrolyzed it. Upon hydrolysis, first reaction is upon oxidation of compound C, it gave compound A, confirming that aldehyde has actually undergone self-oxidation reduction type of reaction, so that compound A and compound C are almost the same, exactly the same, except carboxylic acid and methyl substitutions. So here they have taken now compound C and hydrolyzed it to obtain, say this one, 2-amino 5-methyl pyrazine unit. So what does it indicate? So this one is there. So pyrazine unit is also over here, and here on this side you can see nitrogen attached to the pyrazine ring, and exactly opposite to that one, here on this side there should be the carbon content. So in compound C, over here you will have a methyl group. So what should be there in case of compound A? So these observations have actually confirmed presence of this structural unit in compound A. Okay, so friends, this is the way how compound A structure is elucidated. The first one is the guanidine unit is identified. See here, this is the guanidine part, and then pteridine unit is identified. So this is the pterydyl unit, and carboxylic acid content position is actually identified with this hydrolytic reactions, and this is the way how this structure is confirmed. Next, what they have taken is East L-Kesi factor was taken. To summarize whatever happened in the last slide, sulfurous acid was taken to obtain compound B, that is aldehyde, and upon treatment with sodium hydroxide in the absence of air, we got 2 compounds. So compound C and compound A. This should be compound A, sorry, and they are interconvertible. Okay, upon oxidation, compound C can be converted to compound A. And compound C upon hydrolysis, it gave us 2-methyl pyrazine, 5-methyl pyrazine 2-amine, and these observations have actually confirmed the structure of compound A as this one. Okay, so this is the compound A. Its structure is further confirmed with synthesis. Okay, let's see how actually it is synthesized. Now first guanidine was taken and then it's treated with cyanoethyl acetate to obtain a pyrimidine derivative like this. So this is nothing but diaminopyrimidine, diamino monohydroxypyrimidine, and now this is treated with nitrous acid, because in case of nitrous acid treatment, so this is the only position available, that too it is activated position. On one side you have amine and on the other side you have hydroxy group, so thereby at this position you will have attachment of NO group happens. Okay, and then the NO group was actually reduced with hydrogen palladium to obtain triamino 2,5,6 triamino pyrimidine 4-ol. This is treated with ethyl 2-bromo 3,3 diethoxy propanoate to obtain the target compound A. Actually this is A. Okay, so this is A, compound A was obtained. So this is the way how compound A structure is confirmed. Next one is the remaining part. So in the first slide we have seen yeast Kc factor upon treatment with sulfurous acid, it gave us an aromatic amine D and aldehyde B. Okay, so this aromatic amine D was taken, and then upon hydrolysis it gave two known compounds. One is para-aminobenzoic acid, the second one is glutamic acid. Glutamic acid is an amino acid, para-aminobenzoic acid is the organic compound, aromatic unit of this particular compound. And they got these two compounds in 1:3 ratio. 1:3 ratio. So what is the indication here? Aromatic amine D is actually a tripeptide. Containing para-aminobenzoic acid and 3 units of glutamic acid, and the entire structure is ultimately basic in nature. And these observations indicated that the structure of aromatic amine D could be para-aminobenzoic acid on one side is attached to the 3 glutamic acids. And further, yeast Kc factor when taken and treated with alkali in anaerobic environment has resulted in DL liver Kc factor plus 2 glutamic acids. Okay, to give you a hint, in the first introductory part, liver Kc factor is nothing but actual folic acid, whatever we are referring to. Okay, so it gave in anaerobic environment liver Kc factor plus 2 glutamic acids. Then they have taken liver Kc factor and then treated with alkali in aerobic environment. It gave aromatic amine D. This is the aromatic amine D. Then which upon hydrolysis gave para-aminobenzoic acid and glutamic acid. Para-aminobenzoic acid and glutamic acid. So what does it indicate? This clearly indicated that para-aminobenzoic acid and glutamic acid were actually forming a monopeptide. Okay, so they were forming coupled via a peptidic bond, and which can be further extended by 2 more glutamic acids to obtain yeast Kc this one aromatic amine D. So friends, this is the way how the aromatic amine D structure is actually confirmed. And yeast liver Kc factor is nothing but this one. So on this side you can add 2 more glutamic acids to obtain the aromatic amine D. Okay, friends, this is the way how the aromatic amine D part was actually confirmed. Now what is it that we have to do? We need to find a point of attachment for A and D. In the beginning I told you yeast Kc factor when upon air oxidation is actually giving us compound A and aromatic amine part. Okay, and where actually we need to join them together. These are the 2 parts where we have to join them together. Are they joined via amide bond? If they are joined by amide bond, even when we are not using oxygen, it should be able to hydrolyze that. Okay, which is not possible. So that's what indicated that this carbon over here, the carboxyl, which is actually making carboxylic acid, is actually not a carboxylic acid. It should be in a form which is oxidizable. Okay, not even imine. Imine can also be hydrolyzed with severe hydrolytic conditions, but it was also not possible. So that's the reason why it should be a methylene group. So that is the ultimate conclusion. So that's the reason why these two were later on joined by a methylene group. Okay, over here. So the methylene group CH2NH, which can be oxidized and then hydrolyzed. Okay, like COOH and NH2 are obtained. So this is the way how the structure of liver Kc factor was confirmed. Synthesis of liver Kc factor, because confirmation of any structure has to happen via synthesis only. So here what they have taken is 2,6-diamino 5-amino pyrimidine 4,5H1 was taken, and then it is treated with 2,3-dibromopropanol to obtain this compound, where this is the actual nucleophile that is actual structure that is needed, and here we have a bromine. So to bromine you can add the nucleophile nitrogen. Okay, it is made to react with paraminobenzoic acid, glutamic acid, amide to obtain liver L-Kc factor. Liver L-Kc factor is nothing but folic acid. Okay, if you wanted L-Kc factor, because the other one here, from here you can do the extensions. The remaining factors whatever were there, including vitamin M, vitamin B, C, the remaining factors were found to possess this pharmacophore, plus the chain is extended in this direction by adding more and more glutamic acids. Okay, so this is the way how the structure of folic acid and related analogues were elucidated. What is the biological significance of folic acid? Folic acid is a photosensitive compound and it gets degraded easily in aqueous, acidic and alkaline solutions. That is what we knew. And why it is so? Because folic acid is actually the starting molecule is not very active. So it gets converted to dihydrofolic acid, and then it is further converted to tetrahydrofolic acid. So this is tetrahydrofolic acid is actually the active constituent for biological activity. Okay, so this one takes up one methyl group from serine, and then see, this is it. This is where we have that extra nitrogen methyl group, and that is transferred to other members. Okay, that can be transferred to other species. Okay, so here this undergoes certain oxidation reduction reaction, so that iminium ion is coming over here, and then 5-formyl THF or 10-formyl THF are formed. Okay, which upon hydrolysis. Okay, this is hydrolyzed to obtain either 10-formyl THF or 5-formyl THF. This formyl group can now be transferred onto other species where methylation has to be done. Okay, so this is the way how folic acid undergoes certain biochemical reactions to get activated, so that it helps as a methyl transfer, a single carbon unit transferring agent, a cofactor. Let's see one example. So here how actually methyl group can be transferred from homocysteine to obtain methionine. Okay, so here the methyl group that is over here is transferred to SH group over here, so that it is becoming methionine. Here the another cofactor that assists in this transfer is vitamin B12. So whenever and wherever a single carbon is to be transferred, formyl transfer has to happen. Folic acid is must there. And one more compound where you can see its role is synthesis of uracil. Thionine, the synthesis of nucleic acids, where this is uracil, double bond O and double bond O. This is uracil, and if you keep here methyl group CH3, this will become T. Okay, thiamine. So here in the transfer of in the conversion of uracil to thionine, we use the tetrahydrofolic acid, a very important constituent. So this is the reason why for cell division all these nucleic acids are needed. Hence THF, if it is lacking, cells cannot divide, so thereby hemopoiesis cannot happen. So this could be one reason why folic acid is highly essential for the hemopoiesis. So friends, I hope you understood the chemistry of folic acid, and if you like this video, Please share it with your friends and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you very much.